This podcast is brought to you by Clear Cut Window Tinting. With 20 years of experience in the application of lifetime warranty films and over 3,000 happy customers served over the past few years, Clear Cut is ready to serve those of you in and around the Denver metro area and are proud to announce the second location grand opening in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Call 720-548-TINT to book your appointment. That's 720-548-8468 and 720-999-5785 for our Colorado Springs location. The professional application of quality film will significantly reduce the heat in your vehicle, reduce glare, and protect your skin and eyes from harmful UV rays. 720-548-TINT or 720-999-5785.
Welcome to the Married to Myself podcast.
Hey guys, you're back with your girl Delise on the Married to Myself podcast. This is our 7th episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Tonight we are talking about identity, and I got my hubby Bubby Wubby, as he's saved in my cell phone, Jonathan.
What up, y'all?
So, identity. There's many places in my book where I mention identity. It's a huge, significant topic. The way we identify with ourselves affects our entire world, especially concerning our marriage, but also everything else that we do in life, every relationship that we have, the way that we see and view ourselves on the grand scheme, and the relationship we have with ourselves, hence Married to Myself, affects everything. So we want to get deep into identity, hit some of the points out of the book. We are recording this on the 7th night of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is the festival of lights. We celebrate this every winter season. It is found in the scriptures, in many Bibles referred to as the Festival of Lights or the Feast of Rededication of the Temple. And I see that having a lot to do with identity, and we'll hit on that in this conversation. First thing I found flipping through the pages of my book, searching for the word identity, we're in the kindergarten chapter. A marriage that is not unified is in trouble, just like a business partnership. If the partners can't agree on a name for their company and choose to maintain the identity of their previous business by keeping the old name, not only is a seed of division planted within the company, but the customers and clients will be less confident in a business that can't make up its mind on what it wants to be called. As wives, we take on the identity of our husbands, not to leave behind our own strength and gifts, but to merge with him and be the support and backbone that balances and adds to the positive traits he already possesses. Pulling in a separate direction divides a home, and the basic kindergarten lesson of knowing how to write your name is another stone laid to support a solid, undivided marital structure. What do you think about hyphenated names, Jonathan?
I have a real strong opinion about hyphenated names. I do not like them or the understanding of them. I don't think that it allows you to fully adapt into a relationship when your name is hyphenated. And especially, I've seen hyphenated names that were hyphenated to the last husband, not just
the maiden name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
So if you're not following us, we're just talking about when someone has two last names simply because they don't want to completely surrender to the identity of the marriage that they're currently in. Either because they took a lot of pride in their family name, their original family name, or because they had the last name with the previous person they were married to for so long, it's become a part of their identity. And the reason this is even an issue is because of, like we mention in every podcast, we've had the honor of talking to and being a part of the in-depth conversations behind people's marriage stories. And we have found so many trends amongst all of those different relationships, which has allowed me to have enough information to be able to write the book, and was the inspiration behind the book. All of these conversations we've had with so many people from different walks of lives about their marriage stories and marriage identities, if you will. And so the hyphenation theory is something that we came up with based on those conversations and the understanding that we've acquired over the years, that the majority, I try to be conservative and say majority, but like all of the people we talked to with a hyphenated last name had a specific kind of struggle in their relationship that dealt with them not wanting to completely surrender or release the identity of their past to fully immerse themselves in the current marriage. And that scares people because they think that means they're somehow losing themselves. And we're here to tell you that it's exactly the opposite. That in surrendering, that's where you really discover yourself and who you are. It's important to really dig into identity and how you're choosing to identify with yourself, because if you're basing who you are on something brittle or superficial or something temporary, you are setting yourself up for some disappointment.
Yep. So I'll give you a couple of examples that I've seen that kind of go hand in hand with the hyphenating. Mm-hmm. So one of them is if you wait a long time to get married, you know, if your first marriage is in your 30s, even sometimes early, you know, late 20s, you're 28, 29, and then, you know, even later than that, that definitely has a lot to do, because now you've created an identity in yourself versus in a relationship. You don't want to lose your identity to now, you know, this person that you're getting married to. I think it really puts a toll on a relationship versus kind of being all in. You know, when you get married, you could, you know, just change it up, change your name. Worst case scenario, if you decide to get a divorce, you can always go back to your other name. It's just paperwork.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but don't carry that into this new marriage and say, I'm going to be Delise Keys Collins because I've been a Keys my whole life and you're not taking that from me.
Right.
And if a name isn't a big deal, then why do you need to keep that? It's because names are a big deal. Right.
No, for sure. And it has a lot to do with, you know, adapting to a relationship. And I think by just that, by changing your name, also, you know, tells your brain to help you to adapt to a relationship. I think that's a big part of marriage. So many people, you know, one of the common things out is identity theft. And I believe that so many people look at the name change as an identity theft.
Wow.
And that's why they hyphenate their own name.
That's good. Like something's being stolen or they're giving a part of themselves away. But in a sense, you are when you enter into a marriage.
Right.
Because marriage is full of compromise, give and take. And it's like right off the bat, I'm not giving up my identity. You're from the beginning kind of setting yourself up for some hardships in that relationship because you're making a decision in the very beginning, legally on paper, that you're going to hold on to who you were.
And I respect it. You know, we're talking about first marriages. That's how I look at it. Some people have been married, you know, a couple times. And then I guess, you know, to hyphenate. But at that point, why don't you just keep your last name? You know, if you're going that far to say that you are a Collins Keys, why don't you just stay a Collins or just stay a Keys? You know,
what's the point of even adding?
Yeah, you know, who is that for? It doesn't make you more married,
right?
Because now you've added someone's name to yours versus changing your name to theirs.
Yeah,
you know, so.
But we could say from our experience and the experiences of the others that we've been able to observe, that when they feel some kind of way about holding on to their previous last name, there's some struggles involved with that.
I mean, it's no different than a prenup.
Wow.
You know,
I hadn't thought of that.
People want you to, you know, I don't want to sign over everything. I don't want to combine everything into one because you didn't bring in anything.
So then it's a matter of trust from the beginning.
And to me, again, that's just a game. Then why do it? You know?
That's good.
Why be so quick to jump into it if you're not?
Why didn't you say that when I was writing the book? I could have put that in the book.
Yeah.
That's good. So hyphenating your last name is in the family of having a prenuptial agreement.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, you know, everyone has their own opinions. Again, I am talking specific to young marriages. You know, if you've been married 3-4 times, yep, you have whatever baggage, whatever reason you're keeping your last name, you know, and then there are a lot of financial reasons. You know, I've talked to, you know, older people. They have to keep the last name of their husband that passed in order to continue getting the benefits.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not speaking to those things.
Yeah, this isn't about passing judgment on people who've chose to have a hyphenated name. It's about just opening all of our eyes to all the possibilities of different things that could be related to specific struggles we may be having.
Yeah, I think so. You know, these podcasts are designed for you to just look at your relationship and how you can build on it. So if you're listening as a husband, don't go, oh, you know what? My wife did that. Oh, no. It's not designed for that. It's designed so from here.
Designed to allow you to have some introspection and to dissect your situation if your situation needs some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And build on it.
Yeah. This is the last page of the kindergarten chapter. A desire to hold on to the person you were before you were married is a desire that needs transformation and should not be solidified by a legal transaction of recording your name as a hyphenated identity linking you to your past.
Did you say illegal?
No, solidified by a legal transaction of recording your name as a hyphenated identity linking you to your past.
Yep. It all depends on the situation. For me, when people are young, and I think that people should get married young, so that they can adapt to their wife and to their husband. And I think a hyphenation, it's almost like it's putting something into the air. You know, oftentimes people talk about, you know, energy and you know,
speaking things into existence.
Yeah.
We get what we believe we're going to get.
Yeah. So if you believe that you should keep your own last name for the power, and I guess I'm speaking to wives, because the design from the Bible is, you know, a wife is supposed to cling to the husband and take his name. If you believe you have to keep your last name, that's fine. Just be prepared to the fight that comes with that.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's no difference. When you get married and your wife or your husband says, you know what, I want to do a prenup, and you still go through with the marriage, that's fine. Just when
did you
stuff,
sign up for?
when stuff comes apart, don't be like, I can't believe this. Like, well, there was some signs there in the beginning that kind
We
of
put
told
our
you.
outs in there in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
When you talk about young marriage, another trend that we've noticed in our years of conversations with the different couples is that it's more acceptable to both people in the relationship to keep the hyphenated name when they are older or when they are on their, third or fourth marriage. But young couples, it's not even a thought to hyphenate because they're so excited. It's like this pure innocent thing of, I'm the Mrs. So-and-so.
Right.
Now I'm Mrs. Johnson, or I'm Mrs. Collins, or I'm Mrs. whatever. And to young people, that comes without question. But to people who've been through some things and who have some pain from
some baggage.
And baggage, those are the ones that are like, I feel safer holding on to a part of myself.
Right.
And we've talked through that with those people and explained that if you are willing to surrender and treat this like it's a brand new marriage, not like it's your third or fourth marriage, you're going to go much further and less likely at looking at a fifth or sixth marriage.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say further, again, like I just said. When you approach it with that mindset, just know the fight. Don't be surprised when now you're having an identity fight in your relationship. Now your husband or your wife is, you're not feeling the connection. I don't feel like you're in this with me. Well, I did kind of leave a part of me out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I use it for strength, or I use it, hey, I respect it. Going to the fight. Ready.
Absolutely. Page 37. Marriage is a tool God uses to create an environment of support for each of us to become the best at our gift that we were born to bring into this world. So I think for the people hyphenating, maybe don't fully understand that revelation, and they feel like to be the best at whatever they're meant to bring into the world, they have to hold on to something from before as to who they were before, not understanding that completely surrendering in the relationship you're in, surrendering really to your true self, because if you are a person that wants to be married and values marriage, know that in surrendering and finding peace in your marriage, because you're not battling to maintain this past self, that's when you will get even deeper into who you are, who you were created to be, and be able to operate in your gift and what you're meant to bring into the world. And that's an amazing thing. And it's funny because life and staying attached to people who maybe are bitter about marriage and relationships will seed things into young wives' minds and even husbands that it's the exact opposite of that. That being married takes away from your identity and your independence. Whereas the truth is, connecting with another spirit on this earth opens you up to finding yourself, not losing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in a relationship, I'm going to relate this to school. When you were young and you went to school, young, elementary and stuff, what did people call you?
Me?
Yes.
Lisa.
Okay. And then as you grew up, now what do people call you?
Delise.
Okay. So I think that happens the same way in a hyphenated name. If this is, your second marriage or you got married late, you come in with a young mindset and you want to have the Collins Keys or Keys Collins, and that's the young name. But then once you get to you've been married now 15 years, automatically you drop it. You just out of your own words, you stop speaking the double name.
Yeah.
Because you're like, all right, I'm in it now.
Right.
So I think that has to do with maturity in a relationship. It's not just being mature as in your age or your growth. It's the maturity in the relationship you're in. Once you can actually see this relationship mature, then you have more of the strength to drop the hyphenation.
That's good. When I was in elementary school, Delise was unique, and I had never heard the name before, and no one else had that name. But Lisa was a quote-unquote normal or common name, and when you're in elementary, being common is a popular, positive, good thing. But then when you hit the middle school and high school stages, you want your identity to be unique. You want to be custom. You don't want to necessarily fit into the mold and have the same name as 5 other people in the school. So that's a great point, because that's literally how it happened for me. I wanted to be called Lisa until I hit end of middle school, around the time you and I met. I was in 8th grade when you and I met, and that's also around the time that I wanted people to start calling me by my government name.
Right. And that's exactly it, as you grow into a marriage, as you start out, let's say this is your second marriage, or you got married at 30, you can walk into a building and still be that first last name. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can still be, Jonathan Collins or, Delise Cheese. And then, when you tell people, oh, yeah, well, aren't you married? Oh, yeah. Well, didn't you say Keys? Well, yeah, it's hyphenated. Mm-hmm. I go, okay. But then once you've got a hold of the marriage, you're like, all right, I'm in here. This one's gonna last, as a lot of people would say. Then you might not walk into the building with that same, using the your first last name.
Yes. So. Yeah. So to switch gears and stop picking on people with 2 last names, I want to talk about identity and culture, because this also is something in the book that I hit on. Culture is no doubt a factor that determines the way we identify with ourselves. Culture forms the way we view the world and other people that we interact with and view through various forms of media on any given day. Culture is often a driving factor in everything we think we can be and everything we think we may have to fight to get there. Culture has strong binding ties that can be an invisible stronghold of what we allow in our lives and even what we think may be the impossible or possible for us to achieve. So, not holding anything back, I am speaking there as a person who grew up in the Black culture in America and all of the different ways that is looked at by other people of the same culture. The way that we feel offset in not necessarily agreeing with taking pride in your culture to the point that you become that of what a lot of people in our culture would call the oppressor.
Yep. So I remember when you were in college and you were taking like a psychology course, it talked about who you first identify as. And that actually hit home for me because what I like before we ever get to a race is identity would be when people, call themselves a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Catholic or a Jew. In my understanding, that should be first. And the walk of that should be first. That should come before any race, any creed, and it doesn't. It rarely does. people will first identify with their race. That's 90%
in our
of
culture.
what I've heard.
Do you think the other cultures do that? Because in the black culture, when you ask someone, who are you? It is very common for them to say, first, I am black. But if you ask a white person they don't start off with, I'm white, because that would be considered racist coming from them.
It just all depends. Because America sets you up as a African American or a Hispanic American. It doesn't necessarily call you a white American. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of a game that's played, and we get caught up in the game.
No doubt.
So I don't think
because I've never been to Africa.
Right.
So why am I not just an American? Just like the white person is just an American.
Right.
Because in other countries, they identify by the country that they're a citizen of, not the color of their skin first.
Right. You never heard of someone saying, I'm a black African.
Right. I'm a white African.
Or, a black Italian. They don't say that.
I'm Italian. I'm
Italian.
South
this
African.
Is where I'm from.
I'm Egyptian.
I don't think that it's fully our culture, as in the black culture's fault. I think they just get caught up in it.
Mm-hmm. And it's, like you said, it's been strategically devised that it be something that we get caught up in so that we miss what we should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
Distracted with the surface, literally the surface, our skin color. I think this is the best quote of all time. Our children and grandchildren may yet curse the day we began hyping race and ethnicity. There are countries where that has led to slaughters in the streets, but you cannot name a country where it has led to greater harmony. Thomas Sowell.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Getting the Hebrew understanding, having a rabbi as a teacher really, really helps explain the difference between Greek and Hebrew and how they identify. Because, and what they look at, the beauty of holiness versus the holiness of beauty.
Yes.
So which has
a lot
powerful.
To do with Hanukkah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that part to me is just really powerful. If you first identified with what you believe, I think that also goes in with the commandments. If you trusted God first, when someone asks you, who are you? You would start with, I'm a Christian, or I'm a Jew, because
I'm a believer, I'm a child of God. Those are strong identities to stand on, because regardless of all of the brittle identities that you might have, if you have a strong identity first as I'm a child of God, then that isn't as easily broken as I'm a wife, and then maybe you lose your husband or you get a divorce, and now you go through this really dark period because what you were placing your identity in is something that can be broken.
No, exactly. And so the most common that we hear is, I'm black, but people come up to me and say, oh, you're a black business owner. Ugh. And I'm like, no. I'll be a small business owner because I currently own a small business, but my race has absolutely nothing to do with it. So, that identity goes, and I see it as burdens. When you put your race first, or when you put anything but God first as your identity, it's a burden that you're carrying around. And versus, putting God first, and now he's carrying the burdens of every other thing that you may be.
Wow. That's really good. That's really good. And that's not to say that you can't take pride in being a wife, in being a mother, or I'm a teacher, or I am a writer. Yes, those things are all positive things, but if it's your first, landing point when someone says, who are you? Or when you ask yourself, when you look in the mirror and ask yourself who you are, if your first answer and acknowledgement of yourself is your skin color, something that can be broken. Also consider what might happen if that thing goes away that you identify yourself with.
Well, people will say, well, my skin color
will never go away. Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Mm-hmm. So when you were going to college, they started with skin color. Then they also went to your sex, so male or female. And then, it moved on to maybe your job or your career, or whatever that was. And, if I was a business owner and I said, well, I'm a male business owner, or you rarely would hear that, but you would hear, well, I'm a female business owner. And then there's something in that stance to say, well, I've made it as a female. I'm like, okay, but do you want to just make it, or do you want to make it as a female? Because I look at it as, I just want to make it. I just want to be successful.
Oh, okay. So I was getting really lost there for a minute, but now I see where you're going with that. And correct me if I'm wrong. You using female as an example of, do you want special treatment because of one of these statuses that you hold in this society? Or do you not want to be segregated at all by any of those statuses, whether it be your sex, your skin color, your religion?
And that's
just make it because you're a human being.
Yeah, exactly. You went perfect. You perfect because, yes, I believe that the minute that you make a statement of some sort
on one of those brittle identities,
you want special treatment because of that.
Yeah.
When every widow lets you know they're a widow, there's a reason they told you that.
Right.
When every girl business owner, when every black business owner, when every Hispanic, when they start out with,
And going back to what I was alluding to at the very beginning of this conversation, that we don't fit in with a majority of other black people in the way that they think, is exactly what you're saying right now. That I don't want to be segregated, and by seeking preferential treatment because I am considered the minority, or the disparity, or the impoverished, or the victim, or whatever, is now also agreeing that I'm a victim, that I'm the minority.
Yes.
When I believe that I can be anything that I set my mind to because of the God that I serve and my identity in Him, and that it's a setup for me to fall for anything less than that.
And the Bible would say,
what do you accept?
That's the power of the tongue.
Yes.
Right? So if the first thing that you identify with is poverty, your tongue is going to keep you in that poverty.
Right.
So definitely the first thing you should identify as a child of God.
Yes.
And
speaking to poverty and your words, stop saying that you're broke. Change your words. I'm in a financial transition.
Yes.
I have financial goals, and right now that doesn't fit into my budget.
I'm in between jobs.
Yes. I'm not broke. I am whole and fixed and moving forward.
I'm not unemployed. I'm not. And again, these are all identity things that people walk around with on a daily basis. People are ex-wives and ex-husbands and ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends.
The big one. I am a recovering addict. Did we already say this in the last podcast? I don't know. Or were we just talking about it yesterday?
I don't know.
If you want to detach from the identity of your addiction, no matter what it was, stop identifying yourself as a recovering addict or a recovering whatever. Or I used to smoke cigarettes. I just don't smoke cigarettes. The person that identifies as a recovering addict is more likely to end up regressing and going back to whatever that addiction was than the person that just no longer is an alcoholic. I am no longer...
I think it's the ing on it. Recovering. Versus
recovered.
Recovered. I'm done. I did that.
Yeah.
I closed that door.
Yes.
But the ing
When
leaves the door open.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to watch your words, be careful who you identify as.
Yes.
I'm a recovering. That's an identity. That's something that you're saying who you are. You're speaking that to the universe every single day. You're telling yourself that every day instead of say, no, I recovered from that. It's kind of like, and this is a hard one, but cancer. People don't say, I'm recovering from cancer when they beat it.
They say, I beat cancer.
I beat it. I recovered from it. Or the same. So if you treated the illness
like it was cancer.
Like it was cancer.
I beat that. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I'm not that anymore.
So that's how
it doesn't define me.
Yes. And that's really strong because they'll tell you, and my mom had cancer, and they'll tell you a lot of that is psychological. In order to fight the cells.
The healing is, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to believe it.
Yes.
You have to speak it. You have to, that you won the battle that you were in. So it's the same thing in anything that you identify with. If it's negative and you're still fighting it, that's exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
You're still in it versus you beat it. You won that. Now you are no longer that.
Yes.
So.
This is from the 6th grade chapter. Yeah, 6th grade. To our fault, we take so much pride in the culture that we identify with that we unknowingly diminish potential opportunities that could come through people that have a different culture than our own. It is a psychological and scientific study that reveals to us that as one identifies with themselves, so will their friends, associations, and resulting life opportunities reflect.
That goes perfect to Facebook post I posted today, and we often say it. Our friends and family identify us as kings and queens because they honor us in who we are and what we believe.
Yeah.
I had someone today bring me.
Shout out to our neighbors,
Yes.
Jesse and Jessica. They did something very honorable today that was just so heartwarming, but they brought us some coins, like shekels, just something symbolic of Hanukkah. They don't celebrate it, but know that we do, and just to recognize that, Jesse, looked it up and spoke a little blessing over us and gave us some silver shekels. And
gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's huge, though, but they see that as that's how we identify. Ooh, that's how we walk.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if his identity, and I'm picking on you a little bit, Jesse, but this is a good example. If his identity was so ingrained into what he believed that he felt he was superior to other human beings, he wouldn't have said Happy Hanukkah to us and brought us shekels.
Yes.
And then the doors aren't open to truly having the friendship and the human connection that we could have with people to affect other people's lives.
I think that's the most powerful thing. It's often, in the holidays, you say, hey, Merry Christmas. It is what it is for that person. So if you're so stuck in, well, I'm Jewish, so I'm not saying anything to them. Like, that's cool. But how far is that going to get you?
Yeah.
And is that the Jesus spirit? Is that the Jesus, the Jewish Jesus I know?
The only Bible, will you be the only Torah that a person ever reads or is exposed to in the way you conduct yourself and treat others?
And will you be bitter in their mouth?
Wow.
Or will you be sweet?
Sweet.
Based on, how you treat. Do you think of others? The whole Bible, the whole relationship, marriage is all about thinking and considering others.
Yes.
So you have to be that when you walk. Be considerate, be thankful. So yes, I love it.
Yes. Today I read a book for the second time. It only takes like 2 to 3 hours to read, so that's how I read it today again. But it's called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. And the whole book is about identity, in that you can be an amateur for your whole life, or you can really look in the mirror and face your true self and dig deep to discover who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. And that for many of us, we operate in something that he calls shadow careers, where, for example, I'll use myself for an example. Deep in my core, since I was little, I saw myself speaking to many people, leading, teaching, helping, healing. And my shadow career was, I'm going to move to Vegas and be a performer, reaching audiences with entertainment. But that is the very tip of the surface of what God had for me and what I'm supposed to break through to, and how I'm supposed to be using my identity in Him to truly make a difference in the world and help change people's lives. So it was a shadow career for me to be cocktail waitressing at a 5-star 5-diamond resort, getting to meet people from all over the world and serving them drinks, getting them drunk, when really I'm supposed to be serving knowledge and information and ideas that take people to another level mentally. So the concept in the book is that we choose shadow careers because we're actually afraid of our true selves and what we could actually do if we went pro with what God has put in our heart. And it's not a spiritual book, so he doesn't use God as a reference, but I'm able to take that and flip it to my understanding in the filter that I have through the Bible. But he talks about shadow careers, the fear of becoming who we really are, because we may be rejected by our tribe. So that goes back to the culture and the identity, and us speaking from our personal experience in the Black culture, afraid that you'll be, the quote unquote Black sheep if you say, I don't want to identify as Black. I just want to identify as Delise. I don't want to be segregated. And that really tortures people, especially the older generation of Black people in this country, because they feel, what is the word? They're really upset when we use the word segregate to explain what they're doing as opposed to what someone did to us. So to separate yourself because of your skin color and say that you deserve special things because of the things we've gone through in this country, we feel, our personal opinion is that that's now segregating us. I don't want a Black this and a Black that. I want to be welcome to any event right. and welcome any person of any color to my event, because to me that's the opposite of being racist. But there's something else being taught and coming down the pipe to our people to continue, I believe, the oppression and the mental slavery.
Right. And I think that's and I've watched a couple movies that actually used this understanding. I think that is our key to success and, how would you say, to being a superstar. Because true superstars, the race is dropped. I remember listening to one movie, and they were talking about O.J. Simpson, and they said they knew that he had crossed over. He was no longer a Black football player, when he made it to all of these places. And, you can go back and back and back, and your talent, the talent that God gave you will remove your race from how people see you.
Wow. So you're saying that race is in this physical, natural realm, but once you identify with your true self and who God created you to be, you transcend race and skin color, which is what we're supposed to do.
Right. and so I believe that if you can start by just not speaking it, and we're supposed to be in this world but not of this world. So just transcend your mouth, your words first, and then you can truly step outside of it.
And the weakness that a lot of us carry, that we've been set up to carry with the particular history of skin color, not just in this country but the world. It's a lie to think that it's just this country, it's the world.
Yes.
The weakness is that by now identifying with yourself by your skin color first, you are now giving yourself a strength, because your identity has been lost or taken away and stolen from you. So your tribe are the other people that have the same skin color as you, but that's the surface of a brittle identity.
It's the same weakness of you.
Right.
It's not even your skin color. And you stay
down here, at this bottom level until you transcend that.
When you go into a AA meeting, it doesn't matter what color they are in there. They all have a problem, that they're working through, Cancer doesn't care what color you are. And when you're at the hospital or getting cancer treatment, and the other cancer patient, you don't care what color they are anymore. Now you're just all sick and you're fighting through something. The problem is, when you win the battle, you forget to keep the same strength of, this doesn't matter.
When there's a tragedy, people forget.
Yes.
And they come together for healing, but somewhere along the way, it works its way back in.
No, the minute you get past the battle, it's not even somewhere along the way. Like, oh, okay, there was a hurricane. All right, let's go help. Everyone's underwater and stuff is tore up. Let's go help. Let's go find people. Let's go love on people. And then the minute it's, oh, well, sweet, we've helped and we fixed. Now it's, oh, well, the Hispanic community and this many Hispanics died and this many blacks died. And they're like, why can't it just be people?
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation, because when you say that, I think about how you never want to fill out or respond to the question of race, on anything. And when we were younger, I didn't understand that, because I'm like, well, it's for data and statistics. And you're like, I don't want to be a statistic. And I'm like, you know what? I never thought about it that way. We need to be the ones to fight to say we're all human.
Human.
Yes.
We're all human.
The weakness of our human nature to identify ourselves first with our race and culture can mislead us into division and misunderstanding and even hate for others when we identify with our skin color and culture before we identify with ourselves first and foremost as children of the Father. One race, one blood, the human race, created in the image of God to bring his culture to the forefront. Hate arises, in my opinion, for one of two reasons. One, a person who hates himself or herself will not be able to show love to another. And two, a person who takes an unhealthy pride in themselves, as in narcissism, will believe that they are superior to other people in one way or another. And the scripture there, Acts 10:34-35, then Peter opened his mouth and said, in truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, and I put in brackets every race and culture, whoever fears him, God, and works righteousness is accepted by him.
That goes back, identity. If you started out with, I'm a God-fearing person first, before your sex, before your race, before your financials, that would go so much further in
the doors that would be open to you.
Yeah, because you haven't instantly separated yourself into one of these categories.
Yeah.
So, and speaking on the marriage part of this, that is what is important, to identify as married. to identify as a strong person in your relationship so that it can grow.
Yes. So speaking of us being in Hanukkah, Hanukkah to me is everything to do with identity and the preservation of identity, and the part of identity that is the true strength, the part that really matters, which is your relationship with the Creator. So for many people, and I keep hearing this, Hanukkah is the Jewish Christmas. It is not that. For any listeners out there who don't know what it is, I'm going to share a few things with you. So Hanukkah is mentioned in the Bible, depending on what version you have, what translation. I believe it's in the NIV. I see it referred to as the Feast of Dedication. And Yeshua was there on Solomon's porch for the Feast of Dedication, or the feast, the celebration of the lights, what have you. So this is actually a solemn, sad memory that ended up having triumph and victory in the end. But the people of God had to come against some very harsh persecution to maintain their identity and their beliefs, when the people not for God were wanting to strip them of all of their faith, traditions, beliefs, the laws that maintain their identity as the people of God. All of those things were being taken away. And here's this is the book of Maccabees. There's 2 books, Maccabees 1 and 2, and you can actually Google the book of Maccabees and read the whole story of Hanukkah. But I'll just read a few excerpts for you. So Antiochus persecutes the Jews. In the year 143, after the conquest of Egypt, Antiochus marched with a great army against the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. In his arrogance, he entered the temple and took away the gold altar and lampstand with all its equipment, the table for the bread offered to the Lord, the cups and bowls, the gold fire pans, the curtain and the crowns. He also stripped all the gold from the front of the temple and carried off the silver and gold and everything else of value, including all the treasures that he could find stored there. Then he took it all to his own country. He had also murdered many people and boasted arrogantly about it. There was great mourning everywhere in the land of Israel. Rulers and leaders groaned in sorrow. Young men and young women grew weak. The beauty of our women faded. Every bridegroom sang a funeral song. Antiochus now issued a decree that all nations in his empire should abandon their own customs and become one people. All the Gentiles and even many of the Israelites submitted to this decree. They adopted the official pagan religion, offered sacrifices to idols, and no longer observed the Sabbath.
That sounds like identity theft.
Wow. Exactly. The king also sent messengers with a decree to Jerusalem and all the towns of Judea, ordering the people to follow customs that were foreign to the country. He ordered them not to offer burnt offerings, grain offerings, or wine offerings in the temple, and commanded them to treat Sabbaths and festivals as ordinary work days. They were even ordered to defile the temple and the holy things in it. They were commanded to build pagan altars, temples, and shrines, and to sacrifice pigs and other unclean animals there. They were forbidden to circumcise their sons and were required to make themselves ritually unclean in every way they could, so that they would forget the law which the Lord had given through Moses and would disobey all its commands. The penalty for disobeying the king's decree was death. So the story of Hanukkah is war. And the miracle of Hanukkah, and the reason there's 8 nights, is the lampstand in the Holy Tabernacle has originally 7 branches. The branch in the middle with 3 branches on both sides, and that is the lampstand in the tabernacle. The Hanukkah has 9, the servant candle, with 4 extra candles on both sides to represent the miracle during this war toward the end of it, when the Jews were finally able to turn things around and reestablish the temple as a holy place and clean it up of all of the desecration and evil, sick things that happened in there. And you will have to read Maccabees to get more into those details.
It was like LifeLock.
It's very horrific. Yeah, LifeLock, identity theft protection. Yeah. When they got the temple back.
Judah Maccabee.
Yeah, Judah Maccabee was the leader of the revolt to preserve the identity of the people of God, their government, the Torah, which is God's teaching and instruction. When you have teaching and instruction that rules your life, whatever the principles are that you establish for yourself, that is your identity. That will allow you to get from one level to the next, from one grade to the next. Allow your marriage to grow.
Only if that's where it starts.
Yes.
Only if you first identify with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because if you identify with anything else first, even the psychologists of today will tell you that will rule your life.
Yes. Yes. And so back to the lampstand, and the reason that the lampstand during Hanukkah has the extra arms is in the process of rededicating the temple. In the scriptures, in the Torah, the books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, that's where all the teaching instruction for the way we are to govern our lives are. And the instructions for the way the temple is to be set up, the menorah, the lampstand, is to forever burn. The fire is supposed to be a perpetual fire. And I talk about perpetual fire in the book with regard to fire in your marriage, always continuously burning. They, after cleaning and rededicating the temple to God, wanted to restart that fire, but there was only enough oil for so many nights. And the miracle was that the oil burned for 8 nights, even though they only had enough oil for less than that. So that is Hanukkah. It has to do with preserving your identity, preserving belief, Jews maintaining who they are, and preserving relationship with God, because that is everything in this realm and in the other. We are spirit beings in human bodies trying to reconnect to who we were before we were put in these bodies. What did we agree to before we were put in these bodies and put on this earth? And when we truly look in the mirror to reestablish that and let go of the shadow identities and the brittle distractions of who we are and really get to the root of who we are, because the spirit doesn't have a color on it.
Right.
Then
everybody's blood is red.
Yes. Then we will start to live our best life.
Yeah.
I love that identity is what came to our hearts to talk about tonight in the season of Hanukkah. That was by no coincidence, by no accident. There's so many things we could tie in there with marriage.
So the Bible, it talks about God first, then your wife, then your kids. That goes into helping how you're supposed to identify in order to have the strength.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Like the order of the home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the order of life.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get that in order, our rabbi always says, order is the accurate arrangement of all things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can get that in order, then your identity will no longer be in a crisis.
Yes, that's good.
I was going to say, as far as Hanukkah goes, Judah Maccabee is the first LifeLock. But yeah, no, I think, I love these podcasts. I love sitting down, just talking with my wife about growth and identity. These small conversations tie into so much. It's not just about marriage. It's about any relationship. It's about business. We stride ourselves, on being God-fearing people first. Let that be our identity. And God, He shows us every day that is a good thing, to be a God-fearing person first. So as far as me, I first want to be God-fearing. Mm-hmm. Then I'm a husband. Then I'm a father, and now a grandfather. Then I'm a business owner, mm-hmm. and a hard-working young man. I don't want to identify with a race. Mm-hmm. I can say I'm an American, mm-hmm. because I was born in America. I love this country. Those are the identities that I tie to. I don't want to tie to any other identities.
Yeah. Last point on identity, that was an awesome epiphany that I had earlier today thinking about talking about this, was that when I really delved into my identity as a writer, and that was my focus, everything else that I was doing as a shadow identity became less important, not mm-hmm. important at all. So my best example is my clothes. So I am into fashion, hair, nails, makeup, all that stuff. And when I believe I was in the process of writing the book, and I was writing every day, it became clear to me what was a waste of time, what was a distraction, and what was really important for my purpose in the future. So my desire instantly became, I want a capsule wardrobe. A capsule wardrobe is when you own, less than 20 articles of clothing that all work together to create different outfits, but your life becomes less complicated in deciding what you're going to wear every day because you don't have to think about it. Everything matches with everything. You get up, you throw something on, because your supreme focus and identity is something way bigger and greater and less superficial than what am I wearing today. Mm-hmm. So that was something that came to me earlier today that I was like, wow.
Yep. I remember when we were young, after we just got married, I instantly went into, okay, I'm a husband now. I have to also identify as a provider. Mm-hmm. So, and that also got a little skewed because I'm like, well, I'm at work. You're like, I know, but you're always at work. Well, I'm putting food on the table. Yeah, but that's it. Well, I'm providing, mm-hmm.
That's good. That happens in a lot of relationships.
It does.
He's like, I'm doing my job. I'm providing. Don't ask anything else of me.
And, but you just have to really be careful what you put in as
identity.
Identity.
Yeah, and check in with yourself often. And I say yourself because if you're a believer, you believe that your body is the temple, that God dwells within you. So you can talk to yourself and find out a lot of truths mm-hmm. about who you are and if you're on the right track, or if you need to, recenter, refocus, and direct. Yeah. Realign your path. Yeah. So as Hanukkah, I identify as a Maccabee, revolting against indoctrination, that I'm supposed to identify with myself with anything other than child of God, and what that means and what I'm supposed to be doing with my life while I'm here on earth.
Amen.
Yes. Remember, the mature marriage was once an immature, sloppy, hot mess. We all have to start somewhere. Love yourself so you can love each other. We love you, and we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
This has been a Clear Cut Concepts production in association with the published work, Growing into a Mature Marriage from Kindergarten to College. Available on Amazon.com, Target.com, eBay, and the Denver famous Tattered Cover Bookstore. Thank you for listening.
In the social jungle of human existence, there is no feeling of being alive without a sense of identity. Erik Erikson.